Hello there, thanks for listening and watching this. And we're continuing with our little series on Bible teaching, and we're looking at the subject of Titus, and we're thinking about what the New Testament has to say about Christian lifestyle. Now, what I would like to talk to in the main is about two things to you today. I'd like to talk to you about the power of the role model, the power of the role model. And I'd like to talk to you secondly about the credibility of Christian character. So that's two things really from Titus chapter 2 and verse 3 about the role of older women, as Titus is told by Paul to write. And I want to talk to you about the power of the role model, and I want to talk to you about the credibility of Christian character. Before I do that, let me read the verses from Titus chapter 2 to you. Titus chapter 2. We'll read from the beginning. But speak thou the things which become sound doctrine, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. The aged women likewise, that they be in behaviour as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. And then in verse 4 it goes on to tell us why these older women are to be like this, that they may teach the young women. And we'll learn next week what they're to teach them. Now, we've thought about these first two. We're thinking about the second category. We've thought about the first one last week. 5 groups of people in Titus chapter 2. He's going to teach the older men, and then he's going to teach the older women, and then he's going to get the older women to teach the younger women, and then he's going to be a role model and an example to the young men, and then finally he's going to address those who are in slavery and how they deal with that, and that's a very difficult one. So different categories, Christians in the church, and that he's addressing. And the whole point of this teaching is not to teach them Christian doctrine, though he does that in other parts of this letter, but he's teaching them how that Christian doctrine impacts their life, how they live their life. So he's already dealt with the older men, and he said to them that they should be men who are living lives that reflect Christian belief. So he said things to them such as they should exhibit love, they should exhibit patience, they should be people who are sound and healthy in their thinking, they're people who should be self-controlled. And then when he comes to verse number 3, he says, the older women likewise. So he says they've not to disregard what was taught to the older men, but they've to likewise live like that. But then he adds on some things for the older women. And he says to them, I want you to live your lives, to behave, to conduct yourselves, he says, in a way that is appropriate to someone who is saved, who is forgiven. He talks about a lifestyle is becoming to holiness. That word is used in relation to the scriptures, the Holy Scriptures in 2 Timothy. It's used in relation to the lifestyle and the practices of the priests in the Old Testament, the holy things that they handle in 1 Corinthians. And it's got to do with God has made us sacred and special and unique, and he's lifted us up and he's made us. Now he says you live your life to reflect that. This is the power of the role model, because he's going to say to these women, you have to teach younger women. And if they're going to teach younger women, then they've got to have lives that are going to be a good example to them. And did you notice the 3 things that he says? He says to them, don't be people who slander. Don't be false accusers. Secondly, he says, don't be enslaved to wine. Don't be out of control. Don't be under the addictive power of strong drink. And then he says, number 3, teach what is right. Teach good things. So 3 things he's saying. Be careful with your tongue. Be careful what you put out. Be careful what you take in that would control you. So don't be enslaved to wine, strong drink, intoxicated by it. And teach what is right. So you're going to, by example, you're going to train, you're going to bring those younger believing women to live lives that are godly. Why? Because they'll see your example as well as hear your words. So he's teaching some very, very important things here to these women. He's teaching that they are going to live lives that will reflect the sacredness, the specialness, the holiness of what God does in the life of a person when they become a Christian. So the power of that example, not just to the outside world, but to younger Christian women, the power of the role model is incredible. And we know that in relation to our children, we know that in relation to young people, we know that in relation to how we do things. We take our example from others that we respect and love, and we note what they do and how they live and how they behave, and we probably follow their example more than we often follow their words. The power of the role model. But that does emphasize the need for the second point, which is the credibility of good character. A godly woman, indeed a godly man, but in this case he's teaching the woman as far as their training of the younger woman, a godly woman's character is incredibly powerful. That's what adds value. That's what makes the power of the role model so powerful. That good character, a life that is godly, a life that is lived to the honour and the pleasure of the Lord Jesus. Now you notice the things he deals with, what we say. Now you might say to yourself, that's a bit of a tough one, but Paul does that on another occasion. He does it when he writes to Timothy, and he tells them about women, and he says, be careful that they don't wander about from house to house, and that they don't become lazy, and they don't become gossips, and they don't become busybodies, and they don't speak things which they ought not. So let's be really honest here. There is the tendency to talk when that shouldn't take place. There's the tendency to say things that shouldn't be said. There's the tendency to gossip, or it wouldn't be warned about. So he's being very straight. He says, don't accuse people wrongly, don't slander them, don't badmouth them, don't gossip, don't say things you shouldn't say. That's a very strong warning. But he says, don't be under the control of something that then leaves you in a state where you can't control what you say. So don't be enslaved to wine. Don't be under its grip. Keep yourself from those things that would grip you and control you. And he says the outcome is you should be a person who's a teacher of what is right, an example, a trainer, a teacher of good things. That's a great thing to be as a Christian. And in particular, the power of a Christian lady. We all know the power and the influence of a mother, the power and the influence of a woman in the home, and he's teaching. This is God's desire, to see that for his glory. I trust that this will be an encouragement to you as you listen to this week.